Flamwadia, Flamwadia, I bow my nose at you. Flamwadia, Flamwadia. No?
I suspect, possibly, that might have been a little loud for an accurate sound check.
I don't know. We have to be ready for everything. Speaking of which, what have you been up to?
Colin had a problem and a microphone to spare. Thomas took it up and so the podcast went to air. For weeks and months they trolled through every single DVD. They've unwrapped all the ones they can and now they're cellulose free. Now they're cellulose free.
Hello dear listener and welcome to Cellulose Free. My name is Colin and with me as always is my fellow film watcher, compadre and son, Thomas.
Hi, hello.
What have you been up to?
Rather a lot as it turns out.
Good. Well, I have been...
So, on Monday...
Yes.
First meeting of the new council. It was a lot of speeches and one planning item and a new mayor who didn't quite know what he was doing.
He certainly has his work cut out for him, replacing someone who's been there for quite a long time.
Which was not helped by Mulder interrupting his flow as he was going through the omnibus items.
Oh, right. Good.
For what I consider philosophically to be a good reason, but mechanically and considering the legislation around things, not a good call.
Right. Okay. So it wasn't just another miffed non-mayor.
Mulder called a point of order as they were talking about confirming the minutes. Saying that these new councillors should not be voting on the minutes of the previous council.
That is true.
This has some problems. One, abstentions count as votes against.
Right.
And two, if enough people aren't at the table, you don't have quorum.
Oh.
And so the vote can't happen.
Right.
Which would definitely be a problem in some councils that have had turnover rates over 50%.
Yeah.
And the quorum is an absolute majority. So they wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't get to vote. It's almost a problem here.
Right.
Because we had 5 out of 12 new councillors. And that was about the most exciting thing that happened on Monday.
Oh, so he didn't then take it one step further and not vote himself?
No. What happened was that he raised the point of order was ruled well taken, and then everyone voted anyway.
Yeah. Right.
What you gonna do?
See, this is why they should have all been at the last meeting.
Yes, I can confirm that none of the new councillors were at the last meeting.
Not a single candidate for the council turned up.
Nope.
No.
So that's one thing that happened in the past week. On Saturday morning?
Oh, that's right, you've got some big news.
Saturday morning, I want to say. Saturday very early morning. Saturday early enough that I was still up, but late enough that it then caused problems for me getting to bed.
Yeah.
Loading Ready Run. They're a sketch comedy troupe out of Canada. That's the one. And they run an event for Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, called the pre-release, which is just them opening cards and then playing decks well before anyone else. The fact that this was happening is largely unrelated, but...
So, was the Flurry of Horns originally introduced in such a event?
No, that was a few years before its time.
Oh.
What happened during that event was that I spotted Graham Stark, who's one of the founders of Loading Ready Run, wearing a shirt that I had been anticipating being released for some months now.
Quite a few months.
Back in July,
yes.
The deal was made. And I say the deal was made because I designed that shirt back in January of 2020, and then a bunch of things happened. And then in July, Beige got in contact with me, and we made a deal. I signed over the merchandising rights, and they made a shirt out of it.
They did. And it made its debut.
Stealthily. Completely unannounced. On stream.
But as we don't monetize this podcast, we cannot put a link to where this t-shirt is available.
Well,
in the show notes.
It's all right. I have made all the money that I'm going to make off of it already.
You have.
I have not yet
paid rent? Oh, sorry.
No, I haven't paid rent. I do not yet pay rent. I'm sure if I make an income at some point, that will be something, won't it?
It will. Yes.
I have been paid in money, and at some point my payment in shirt will arrive. As soon as, UPS gets
yes.
themselves into gear.
Yeah.
So that happened. And that was unexpected. The shirt, by the way, is a reference to a quote from a wrestling podcast that Loading Ready Run do. I don't watch wrestling, but I do like consuming content from people who are enthusiastic about things, such as two people from Loading Ready Run and wrestling.
And the two knights who are enthusiastic. Well, one of them's enthusiastic. You don't remember the two knights, do you?
The big knights.
Those are the big knights.
I do remember the big knights. I don't remember the opening monologue.
Right. Did I just derail you?
No.
Oh.
No, I think that was about as far as that was going.
Right.
A third thing...
Link is not in the show notes.
Link is most definitely in the show notes. I will put it in there if you don't. I will remember to do my job properly this time.
Oh, what do you mean?
But we'll get to that later on in the show.
Yes.
The third thing that is yet to happen, but will be happening this coming week, is Desert Bus for Hope. Also run by Loading Ready Run and a bunch of their friends who have time. It's a charity event in which people play the absolutely dreadful, unreleased Sega CD mini game from the also unreleased Penn and Teller Sega CD game, Smoke and Mirrors. The minigame is called Desert Bus. In it, you drive a bus from Tucson, Arizona to Las Vegas, Nevada in real time at about 45 miles per hour. And the bus, there's a perfectly straight road, which might make you think that you could just hold down the accelerator, but that would be too easy, and so the bus lists to the right slowly. And if it crashes into the sides of the road, or it stops for too long, it breaks down, and you are towed back to the start, also in real time.
Excellent.
There is a point to all this. They are playing Desert Bus and doing a bunch of other things that are not Desert Bus and are in fact the main focus of the stream. In order to raise money for Child's Play, which is a charity that provides books, toys and games to children in hospitals around the world. Last year raised $1.2 million US. And what I do is I sit in my room down the hall.
He's pointing.
Down the hall.
Down the hall.
And I write down things that are happening so that other people can edit together clips and post them to YouTube. And that goes on for hours every day, and it continues to go on until people stop donating, because every hour costs 7% more than the last, starting from $1. And eventually, the maths works out that it takes about a week.
Yeah.
If we wanted 2 weeks, it would just take roughly the world's GDP. So that's never going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen.
And I'm pretty sure that that is it for me this week.
Wow, you have been busyness.
Yep.
I have not.
No.
I donated blood.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good experience. And I walked in the heat of yesterday. And I was going to go for a walk today, but it's somewhat warm at the moment. It is rather warm spring weather at the moment, so I stayed inside.
I am actively, gently overheating as we speak.
Yes, so we should get underway and watch a film which is lengthy in its length. And turn the air conditioner on.
And hopefully will take us through to the night when it is not quite so dreadfully hot.
What are we watching this week?
We are watching Blake Edwards' The Great Race.
The 1865 movie. What?
Again, we'll get to this.
Would you tell our dear listener what The Great Race is all about?
Crank your engines. With a raw sputter and pop, drivers wheel westward in wacky turn-of-the-century autos for a New York to Paris race. Ahead lie 20,000 miles, a barroom brawl, a sinking iceberg, 2,357 pies in the face, and incalculable laughs.
Incalculable. It has the possibility of being a laugh fest or a snooze fest. I bought it, I've watched it a number of times, and I still can't remember. all that's affecting my mind at the moment is the 2-hour, 40-minute time slot. And it's funny when you had me try and guess what it was, and then described it, the only thing that put me off saying chitty chitty bang bang was the fact that I knew that wasn't on the shelf.
Right.
Yes. But see, that is also a musical, and it's also long, and there was something you were singing earlier that it could have been too. Oh, The Sound of Music.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But the first thing that sprang to mind was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and then The Great Race. It is The Great Race we're about to watch.
I feel like The Sound of Music is even longer still.
I think so. That goes on forever. Yeah. I think it went longer than the war, didn't it? Anyway.
I have good news, though.
What's that?
This is the longest film on my remaining list.
Oh, good. Thomas is going to open up the case and remove the 47 discs that this movie is on.
No, incredibly, they fit it onto one.
He's going to take the disc out of its case. That wasn't the sound of you taking out... I have a recording of you taking a disc out of the case. I shall use that. Stock footage.
No, I'm going to charge royalties.
I shall record me taking a disc out of the case. He's going to stick it in the machine because it's not streaming anywhere because it's too long.
It is streaming somewhere. It's on Binge.
Oh, it's on Binge.
But we're not paying the Murdochs.
No, we are not paying the Murdochs to watch this. We're going to watch it on disc, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. So we shall catch you on the flip side.
Turn to side B.
Is that on the other side of the world?
Sort of. It's sort of across...
A is on this side of the world, and B is on the other side of the world.
It's across the Atlantic, yes. Which is not quite the other side of the world.
No.
But we're also going the long way.
We are.
So we will end up on the other side of the world, but we'll come back to the same side.
We're stalling. So is the car.
Yes.
Let's watch this.
Yes.
You mongrel.
Let's watch this and turn the AC on.
Okay. So, what did you think?
In a lot of ways, this film is about changing values. In other ways, it is illustrative of how far we have come in the last 57 years.
157.
We'll get to that. In the last 57 years. The number of faux pas, it's higher than I'd like.
This film needed the text at the beginning saying that some of the things portrayed in this film are no longer... I can't remember what the phrase was.
To be slightly fair to the film, it's depicting the turn of the century.
Yeah.
But that should not be an excuse.
No. And it's also portraying the turn of the century, as in the previous century, in the 60s, which in and of itself is fraught with danger as well.
The thing that really stood out to me in that regard was the scene with the Native Americans.
Yes.
Who, it turns out, were not Native Americans. It was, quote, the sheriff and his posse as a welcome party. Why?
Yes.
How?
No, you're not allowed to say
No, I realised it after.
It is of its time.
From a filmmaking perspective, it is a bit long, isn't it?
It is. It is very long.
It lingers
Yeah.
in every scene.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have a problem with uneven pacing. It is equally paced throughout, but that pace is slow.
Slow. Yeah. I did note that the race didn't start until the 47-minute mark.
Half the first act.
There were whole swathes of it that either could be completely left out or just trimmed quite excessively. It could easily have lost an hour, I think.
We go to Russia, and the joke is they're very stoic, and they don't understand what you're saying. And we spend minutes just absolutely ringing this joke for what it's worth and more besides.
Yes. It does go longer than it would have taken for the drive to actually take. No, that's unfair. It is still a fun film.
Oh yeah. When it is good, it is good.
Yes. But there is plenty that could be trimmed to make it better.
My other major observation is that I have ruined watching films with other people for myself by, from a young age, being kind of chatty during films.
You possibly learnt how much frustration I went through. We had a couple of extras on board, and they were quite chatty because they are quite chatty, and it being a long film, there was lots of chatter, and I could feel the tension there. But they, I think, got something out of this film.
Oh, I'm sure they did. What I got out of them was chat.
The other thing, as far as labouring points, it was dedicated to Laurel and Hardy, and they really leaned into the Laurel and Hardy slapstick accidents and things like that, to the point where it did get tiresome. For everything that they did well, they did too much of it. They overstayed their welcome on a lot of ideas and concepts. The fact that it took 47 minutes to actually start the race was them re-emphasising the fact that these two teams are rivals. And there was one or two too many of those examples happening that could have been trimmed. But money was spent, and so they didn't.
Rather a lot of money.
It can't have been a cheap movie to make.
It was not a cheap movie to make. In the money of the time, it cost $12 million.
Right.
Which is 98.36 million in today's dollars.
Yeah. I strongly suspect there would have been studio executives chewing their nails and going, oh, do we really need that set to be completely built? And do we need that? And do we need this? And just for, the 10 minutes that it's going to be on screen, because they were all over the place. And the decisions in various places where a number of scenes could be held in one room, they were held in multiple rooms in multiple buildings. It all seemed extremely excessive. And a lot of those, admittedly, were for set-piece scenes where money was going to be spent. You've got the pie fight and you've got the saloon fight that all needed to be constructed to be deconstructed or destroyed. Or
by the time they were finished, the budget had ballooned to double.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Did it make its money back?
It was a disappointment. It did technically make its money back.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, I just get this vibe that the decisions after the decision that was made to make this film, they would have hedged more bets, I think.
And Natalie Wood, you wouldn't believe it from how she actually acts in the film, but she was absolutely going through it at the time. She did this film solely on the basis that she would get to do a different film that she actually wanted to do, and this film took so long to make. She did get to do that film she wanted, but
yeah, and I can't fathom whose labour of love it was, because it obviously was a labour of love, and there was that air of enthusiasm, or at least apparent enthusiasm, from all the actors involved, but it wasn't greater than the sum of its parts. I think it was lesser than the sum of its parts. So it baffles me as to how it could have ballooned so much, because there are some films where you can understand where we need to spend this much more money to make it a better film. It just felt more like we need to spend more money to make this a longer film.
The pie fight, also a bit long.
Yes.
But also a bit long as far as filming is concerned, and those were all actual pies.
Yep.
And they had to stop shooting at one point over a weekend, and all of that pie residue was still on the set, and it does what food does.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that mortified me along those lines is that black acrid smoke. That must have been absolutely awful to be acting within all of that smoke. And there were sparks also that were pouring out at the back of that vehicle, which I did love the sound effect of. I must confess that as far as that vehicle was concerned, the sound that they dubbed over it was just a wonderful vehicle sound. But yeah, that black smoke, it was thick and horrible and black, and I don't know how anyone could breathe in that.
I should say that Blake Edwards, who directed and partly wrote the film, did get his comeuppance at the end of the pie fight shooting, when he was absolutely pelted with them by the cast.
Good.
He got his just desserts.
And I confess, I knew there was still the pie fight to come, and I'm looking at the time and said, when on earth is the pie fight happening? I just thought that it was earlier than that, but no.
No, it's really the big climactic
It
gag
is.
fest.
Yep.
And I'm not just talking about gag reflex.
No. Sword fight.
Mm-hmm.
I love the sword fight.
Yep.
But again, too long.
Mm. They swap swords in the middle of it.
Yeah, it was another thing that didn't have to be so long and just outstayed its welcome.
It's definitely not Princess Bride's sword fight, which has dialogue running through it.
Yep.
And this is largely just the very high-pitched sound of swords clanging together.
It was certainly skillfully shot and skillfully choreographed. It is very hard to get that right. And I'm looking at you, Star Wars, whichever it was that was in Snoke's chamber, fighting the Imperial Guard, and that looked really, really bad to me. Because that looked over choreographed, and right, we do this bit, and right, we do that bit, and then we do this bit, and that gave me a gag reflex. The sword fight in this and the foil fight in this really did feel like they were fighting rather than choreographed, but it was well and truly tightly choreographed to make it look like that.
I have a whole one note left.
Yes?
Which is that Prince Hapnik's laugh gives me shades of the Basil Brush.
Yes.
That forceful ha.
It's interesting that you mention Princess Bride, because you've got Prince Humperdinck and you've got Prince Hapnik, you've got the sword fight, and you've got the great Leslie and the great Wesley. and the coronation, and I think there are riffs happening there, and the moment of the no, I've lost my train of thought, so I'll just move on.
That's a shame. What have you got over there?
We did skip the overture, so we didn't watch it entirely. We did skip through the
entr'acte. Entr'acte?
Yeah, so it did have an intermission, and I exited when the exit music was being played. So it was one of those films that had all three in the music. And speaking of music, it was a musical. It even had a bouncing ball. So that you could sing along, that stopped abruptly, and I had my eyes on my small screen typing "it is a musical," and then looked up and the bouncing ball had gone. Did something happen, or did it just...
I was also looking at my screen when it disappeared.
I wasn't sure whether something funny happened to actually remove the bouncing ball. But
no, I think she was just singing the whole time.
Right, okay. I did like that once the overture had finished, it went into a homage to the slides that used to be used at the beginning of... Well, would be used to do the ads before a movie was shown. The slides with a slide projector. It was being mimicked to do the opening titles.
And I think in the time that it took them to get through the opening credits, they covered just about every base you could get out of the slideshow
The upside down slide, the jamming. Do they have one flipped back to front? So you had to read it backwards?
No, I don't think so.
They did oddly have a burn through, which wouldn't happen with a slide projector. It certainly happens if a movie projector stops with the light still at full intensity.
Because it's just a thin piece of cellulose.
Very thin. In fact, I well remember sitting in a science lesson and having a film we were watching on a film projector, and the teacher decided to stop the film. And these projectors were designed so that you could stop it on a frame, and would flip up and switch to a lower intensity light or put a big filter in front of to stop the burn through. But,
that sounds like a moving part.
but that didn't happen, and yes, I have seen and smelt the cellulose burn, and the teacher just freak out completely because these films would be hired from a library, and someone would then have to chop out that frame. Yes, I know it well. I've seen it. So, are you disappointed that you had selected that for one of your final films?
No.
Good.
I don't think I am.
Good.
Because I think it's a different film from the rest of my selection.
We have been harsh with it, and deservedly so, in the context of, and I don't know whether it is the fact that our brains are sort of more used to now having things happen in a more rapid pace and things being a lot tighter. I don't think it's that. I think it is a slow film, but it does have its real fun moments, and it's got heart, and I'm glad we watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything else you wish to
No,
add?
no, I think I'm good.
All right then, we shall move on then.
The following segment has no title. Thank you.
On Facebook, Helen
Hi, Helen.
has responded to an error that you made and that I failed to pick up in my copy check pass.
What are you talking about?
So last week we watched Jaws.
We did. The 1875
Yes,
film.
originally in the description for that, you had written that it was the 1875 American thriller film Jaws.
Yeah.
And I did not catch this
No.
before it went to print.
You did not. And hilarity ensued.
And that is basically as far as that conversation went.
Oh, but wasn't it worth it?
Yep.
Yeah. Helen didn't make a guess for
Nope.
last week's.
No guess there.
I thought that,
Oh,
did Helen enter into the conversation about...
right, you're getting stuff on your page as opposed to...
Ah, that's where the confusion lies.
Yes.
Helen has
I need
crossed
to-
the streams and...
Yes.
Yeah, Helen, don't do that.
Colin. There it is. No, just the thing from Rob there.
The thing from... Right, okay.
And I don't know if he listens to the podcast.
I don't
or was
know
just
whether...
commenting.
No. But a friend of mine did make a comment on my personal Facebook page where I post a link to the podcast, and he had something to say about Jaws, which was...
He and his son watched Jaws not too long ago and were blown away by how amazing the performances were. I'd either totally forgotten or maybe wasn't old enough to appreciate when I first saw it.
Yeah.
I also thought the whole business of warnings and denials of impending doom felt all too relevant today.
Very much so. Solid film.
Right. Over on Discord,
Hi, Discord.
Entosferatu
Hi, into Osferatu.
says, I will miss the recaps of what y'all are up to each week when you are done. Oh, and the movie talk as well.
Maybe we should each week just get a couple of microphones stuck into the phone and record what we've been up to. A 5-minute segment each week. And you'll have to come up with a jingle about what have we been up to.
Doesn't necessarily have to be weekly either.
No,
does
well,
it?
that's true.
Regarding Jaws and... Entosferatu highly suggests listening to an excellent Decoder Ring episode on, of all things, Baby Shark.
And, into Osferatu, that very day that you made that comment, Thomas did, for once, actually pass on your comment and I was planning on going for a walk that day, and I did so and downloaded that podcast and thoroughly enjoyed it, and thoroughly enjoyed the format of Decoder Ring, and so also listened to a number of other ones, and I'm hooked. So thank you very much for that. And yes, the Baby Shark episode was really, really good. And to stick another earworm in your head other than Baby Shark, I wish to recommend a 99% Invisible podcast episode that's all about who let the dogs out.
Who?
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 Who? So I shall put a link in the show notes for that.
I did not end up listening to the podcast episode. As it turns out, I have far too much going on at the moment.
You do not.
I
No.
do like to say that I don't have a lot going on, but at the moment, not true. Not quite true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do 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 do
Not quite true.
do 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 do
Not quite true.
do 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 do.
Not quite true.
Oh, who let the dogs out? Do 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 do. Let the dogs out. Do 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 do.
And Nosferatu concludes
Yes.
by making a guess,
Mm-hmm.
and that guess is Jaws with three Zs.
Oh, so close,
And yet,
so far.
I believe we do have another guess.
We do.
Waiting in the fins.
In the tubes.
And have a quick chat with Dunkel.
Hi, Dunkel.
Okay. Okay. Dunkel opens by saying, "Hi, Colin.
Hi, Dunkel.
The discussion about the length of the file name has destroyed my confidence, so my guess for this week is Jews. Jews. Which is also wrong.
It is wrong. I am sorry. It is
m-
wrong.
It's missing an A, and you don't have enough W's.
No. It was actually JAWWW.S. No.
There was no dot
There was
involved.
JAWWWS. Jaws.
In her third and final comment today, the bit that I enjoyed at the end of the last episode, which is to say the episode before the one before this one,
So the previous one.
was indeed the Jaws theme performance. Next time, if I mention a bit, I'll say what it was to remind you. I suppose it could be especially unfair, since for all Thomas knows, the episode was completely reordered in editing.
Well, that's right. I do tend to do that, yes.
We definitely don't record all of the segments in exactly the order that they appear.
No, especially the bloopers.
The bit about what we've been doing each week,
Yes.
that's actually the last thing that we record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each week I have to edit out Thomas every single week saying, well, we recorded a podcast. And yeah, it grows old. It really does.
Yeah, I expect it would.
Yeah, it does.
I'm such a mongrel.
You're a mongrel. You mongrel.
That is it for
That
this untitled
is it.
segment.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll move on then.
Yes, let's.
Pick a film for next week so we can go to bed.
It's your turn.
It is my turn.
And you have 4 films left?
I do, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, really? Those films? Fair enough. Okay.
It is 4, right?
It is 4, yes. And one of them's a Christmas special, so if you hear a pause whilst right after I shake the phone, it's because it's picked that Christmas special.
1 in 4 chance.
That's right. Okay. It didn't pick it.
Hey!
And a shout out to Nosferatu. This is a film that I think he mentioned and put it onto our radar, and another film that I ordered specifically because he mentioned it. So if it's rubbish, yeah, too bad if you're going to miss our tight and concise conversations that are full of wit and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such wit.
So, I'm going to just read the plot synopsis, and you buzz in when you think you know what it is.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere in Eastern Europe, 1922. Filming of F.W. Murnau's classic vampire movie, Nosferatu,
Can't remember the title.
is being disrupted not only by funding problems, but by rumours of disappearances and deaths amongst the cast and
What film
crew.
he's talking about, but...
On the first night of shooting, the cameraman mysteriously takes ill and collapses. Some days later, the replacement falls into a trance and never recovers. Blah, 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 blah.
Does it have the word vampire?
Leading man Max Schreck, Willem Dafoe, is never introduced to the cast and crew, and he is never seen out of character. Hapless actor Gustav, Eddie Izzard, thinks his sinister co-star is the ultimate method actor. In fact, director Murnau, John Malkovich, has sealed a pact with Schreck, offering him the neck of his leading lady, Catherine McCormack, at the end of the shoot if he delivers the ultimate performance for the camera. Stranded on an island, the crew must finish the film before Schreck's bloodlust becomes uncontrollable. Produced by Nicolas Cage and nominated for 2 Oscars, Willem Dafoe Best Supporting Actor and Best Makeup Effects, Shadow of the Vampire
There we go.
charts the horrifying lengths to which one of cinema's outstanding directors went to put the most chilling interpretation of Bram Stoker's Dracula on film. Can I stop doing this accent?
You'd never had to start.
It happened naturally.
Did it?
Yes, it did.
Are you sure?
As soon as you start reading that plot synopsis, you cannot stop.
Uh-huh.
Blah, 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 blah.
So next week, my challenge is to read it without naturally falling into that
I am
accent.
hoping that you find a different plot synopsis that doesn't tell the whole story of the entire film. Speaking of next week, we are watching Shadow of the Vampire. See, you can't say vampire without saying vampire.
I think my one confusion here is that we didn't watch this a couple of weeks ago.
No, that is right. But it was you picked.
The one before the one I picked could have been this.
It could have been, but it wasn't. That's what we're watching next week. We hope that you can join us. Blah, 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 blah. But until then, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
You have been listening to Cellulose Free. Your hosts were Colin, who produces and edits the show, and Thomas, who makes the artwork and music. Cellulose Free is recorded in the Deranged Cat Studios in scenic Tasmania, Australia. We keep track of our extensive physical media collection through My Movies, which we highly recommend. You can find links to that, as well as other places you can find us, in the show notes. Cellulose Free is a Hi Hello production.
Go on, say it. Go on, say blah, blah, blah. Go on.
No.
Blah, 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 blah.
Vampires do not go blah 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 blah.
I'm stopping.
That is the one good thing to come out of Hotel Transylvania.
It's the only thing I remember that comes out of... Yes, okay.
Crank your engines. With a roar, sputter and pop, drivers wheel westward in a wacky turn of the... not in a wacky
turn-of-the-century autos.
No,
That's singular and plural.
it is.
That's not helpful. I'm going to start again.
Okay.